Why are you so afraid of conflict? There seems to be an assumption that any sort of argument or heated discussion or conflict that happens in a relationship, um, romantic, non romantic, I think emphasis here for me personally is on the non romantic, but the assumption that any sort of like heated discussion or argument or conflict that happens is at the risk of the relationship has just recently occurred to me as like quite an alarming thought, because I would assume that one, if we go from the platonic state, you're with your friends, if you are essentially in a group of yes men who all follow the same path and all think and see and believe in the same way, then it may create the environment where opposing views and opinions aren't really seen as acceptable in that space or in that environment. And then you get to that point where you're just in an echo chamber. And I think everyone is in some echo chamber of some sort in their life. And the most typical ones that cause, I'd say, the biggest conflicts or the biggest outspill into public life and public occurrences would be like political. When you think of your political beliefs, there are some beliefs that just butt heads so much, and the output of that creates like really harmful consequences. And I also believe that when people house different beliefs and try to express those in areas where people believe something else, it's often just not a conducive environment at all, and the conversation isn't really productive in any manner. But I do think that sometimes people use this thought of echo chambers and hearing out other people's beliefs and opinions to make sure you're forming a more nuanced one, and you are getting opinions from all sides, because then that, I think, prevents a siloing that many people tend to do, where they stick to one side in all things and are just, they've stuffed their ears with cotton when it comes to hearing things from anyone else outside of this circle of beliefs that they've surrounded themselves in. And you get to a point where you're so vulnerable to any form of misinformation because you were only looking at the same few sources. And that's why it's important to be getting your news from elsewhere, because sure, let's say you get exposed to some bigotry, I think it's better to see it and be like, oh, that's bigotry, to where imagine that was one of your only few sources that you looked at and believed that, then how would you ever recognize that as something that's leading you to a negative way of viewing other people and other things? Like, how would you know if it's all that you consumed? You could just be thinking it's right and it's the only right way. All this to say that I definitely think there is this presence of co-opting the thought of like echo chambers and we should all be sharing our beliefs and opinions. I am of the belief that there's just certain views and ways of life that are so destructive and deteriorating to an entire people or an entire existence that do not deserve any form of platform or space anywhere. And I definitely will not like claim to be open and accepting of everything and every idea. I have some non-negotiables where, to a certain degree, like I'm not willing to have you in my circle or have a something under the guise of a discussion, which is really just throwing lots of, what do they call them? Sort of like you're trying to make something like a fact-based opinion when the opinion just of his entire existence calls for the renunciation of someone else, of another person. Like that's not something to debate. I don't think that this concern of conflict ending relationships should be stopping people from confronting others who have these sort of destructive beliefs. I think rather what the thing I'm trying to get at here is you should feel a level of strength in the relationship you have with someone, that you can bring up an opinion, and when they say, oh, I don't agree with that, you shouldn't necessarily feel like, oh, you have to back down, but rather that you can engage in dialogue and explain why you feel this way and hear their thoughts, and not that you have to convince one side or the other. I think that's another thing that comes up is, oh yes, I'm willing to have discussions with other people and have like conflicts, but with the end goal of they need to believe me at the end. Like at the end, I need to have convinced them. And I just don't think in real life that's going to happen in most conversations you have with people who don't believe the same thing as you do. Like you're going to talk to them, you're going to discuss and give each other's opinions. And I think, you know, when they say, oh, let's agree to disagree, some people are like, wait, like, no, like you need to believe what I'm saying. And I don't think that's going to help anyone really come to your side of you. There are people who will have differing beliefs for the entire duration of their friendship with someone, like 20, 30 years. And it's because, like, I think when you're able to know that, oh, we don't have to agree for this to continue being a dynamic we have, or for us to continue having this connection, that it strengthens that connection that you have. And I would argue that when someone's beliefs generally come from a place of misinformation, and, you know, they believe this, and that because they weren't educated and they weren't able to seek that clarity and that knowledge, you know, that's not always going to be the case. I think more often than not, people are too accepting sometimes, and they'll hear something that's just like some sort of super alt-right fascist, like, oh yeah, they're not human beings, and be like, oh, like, we don't know, they could have grew up in just an environment with people who were just, there is still a level of human decency. I'm not talking about people who argue against an entire race or people's existence. I'm talking about someone that just may be like more on the right-leaning side of their politics. Maybe they, for example, identify as Republican. That's not going to be an immediate like, whoa, like we can't talk, like I can't be associated with you. But I am going to want to know, like, why? Like, what are the policies you like? Who are the politicians you like? What have they done that's made you like go this way? And I think there's, you know, maybe it's too conflated now. I personally, everyone's going to say the two-party system is not great, but that's not the topic of this video. But I'm not ever going to be like, ah, yes, like I am this. It's more like I'm leaning this way and I have these beliefs, but I just don't feel wholly and fully represented by a party per se. So I think when it comes to that, when someone's more like, yes, I have this political ideology and these are the beliefs and policies and things that I like to see, then that's more of a we can have conversations and we don't necessarily have to agree on the same things. But if you're arguing to me that a human being can be like illegal, or that, you know, some of the things that should not exist in this world and should be illegal like aren't as bad, and like you want to be devil's advocate, then I don't have space for you anywhere in my life or my presence or my being. And that's not even just like conflict or debate or discussion. That's just holding space for dog whistles and propaganda and just all the things that I don't really need in my energy and my space whatsoever. And so we can have that conflict. I'm never going to be afraid of it. But I also know that even if this were a relationship ending conflict, like in that sense, I would be okay with it, because it's just like this isn't a match. This isn't like healthy discussion where I'm hearing from that other side. I'm getting that nuanced view of, I never want to be like, yes, like everything I believe is 100% correct and I have all the facts and I know everything about this. If I'm ever in that place, then like something's wrong. Like I shouldn't ever feel like my opinion is wholly and 100% and completely correct. You know, except for, like I said, there's a few caveats. There's a few non-negotiables that I'm just going to be like, this is not up for discussion. It's not up for discussion. All this to say, I think for some people, putting aside like all these serious things, even just the most baseline, basic disagreements and discussions, like I want to eat this, oh, but I want to eat this. I want to go here, oh, but I want to go here. If you fear these conversations, I think there can be a multitude of reasons, but one, it could be the relationship you have with that person, and maybe you need to step back and reevaluate, why am I in fear of disagreeing with this person? Is it self-inflicted? Am I causing myself to be fearful even though they've given me no reason to? Am I overthinking things and feeling like, oh, like I don't want to ever upset them, like I don't want to let this go, like I don't want this to go away? Then, you know, ponder on that. Not get therapy or something, because that's just attachment issues. Like you're fearful, you want to hold on to whatever relationship you have because you're so scared of losing it and not having one that you sort of like push it away in that sense, because it's like at some point you become tired of someone who's always so fearful to like step around you and say anything and do anything. You're just like, okay, like now I am gonna leave because it's just like I'm tired of this. I'm tired of this dynamic we have. Or is it the opposite thing where like they give you valid reason to fear not agreeing with them? Like to, oh, like I know if we argue, like they're gonna threaten to end this and like go away and do this and that and the third. I'm not seeing why that would be a dynamic you want to be in. And I'm not talking about any of the extreme scenarios here where it's like, oh, like I'm trapped, like I'm financially dependent or anything like that. I'm just talking about us, the average Joe, who get into arguments with the people in our lives. If you are fearful to express an opposing opinion, maybe we might want to reevaluate that connection we have with that person. But personally, I think I don't feel the need to have to agree with my friends. We disagree often. We argue like all the time. Very rarely is there a moment where we're all like, like, yes, like we're all there. It's part of being human beings. Like we all come from different aspects of life. We've all had different experiences and thoughts and things that have shaped the way we think. And never have I felt like, oh, like if I say this, are they gonna hate it? Like are they going to talk bad about me? Like, am I gonna be ostracized? Is there something that's going to happen in that path? Me personally, no, but that's just the people I've surrounded myself with. I know we don't all have the same opinions and that we don't agree on everything. And I think that's entirely fine. That's what I'm looking for in my life, to have a diverse view and group and sphere that I'm in. I want to be in a half circle. You know, I have home base, but I'm open to the world and to the other things that will come around me. You know, if maybe you don't want a half sphere, you don't feel covered enough, have a full globe. Let it be permeable though. There should be things flowing in and out. You should never have the same, I think, ideas and thoughts forever with no change. Like you've been believing the same thing for 10 years. Can it really still be true over 10 years? Has no situation changed how that might be implemented or the way you think about that thing? Hey, I'm just here to provoke thought and discussion and conversation. This is a conversation. You know, you can reply in the comments. Right now, the microphone's on me. But, you know, after this, turn the mic your way. This is just what I think and things I'm seeing. And I just don't ever want to be in a dynamic where I'm tiptoeing around you. I have too big of a personality and so many things to say and so many things I want to do to ever feel like I can only give 10% of that to you because there might be like a backlash. It just, you won't even get me. You'll get like the impression of me, but I'm not going to really be present and there. I cannot be fully, wholly me in a dynamic with that fear of like conflict. Now there's the difference between fearing occasional conflict and argument and like you are in fear because it's always like it's, you know, there's going to be an argument. It's constant. It's always happening. Once again, why are we here? Why are we here? Once again, because I know it's the internet. I know half of anyone doesn't have any sense. I'm not talking about those special situations where it's like, oh yeah, like I argue with my mom all the time, but like I can't leave home, like I'm dependent. This isn't about you. This isn't about you. This is about relationships that you actually are in control of ending and putting away if they are harmful to you. So, you know, that's my belief. I think people need to be less afraid of conflict. As I said, in these specific scenarios and situations, it doesn't apply. But for the most part, you should be okay with saying something that not everyone around you is going to agree with the exception of like something really crazy. Use your discretion. I'm not your mother. I'm just here to think thoughts. And hopefully you are thinking thoughts as well. Good thoughts, many thoughts, and diverse thoughts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you in the comment section below.